work, and people have different understandings of digital health. I'm also here to talk about being competitive, like how do you actually do the best possible job? How do you create innovation? How do you demonstrate to others that you are the best in the world at what you do? How can you actually make money with what you do? And how can you in the end help save lives and change the way healthcare is delivered? So when I talk about digital health, you see the picture on the right, we are talking primarily about a super convergence of multiple technologies. And I've learned this a couple of years ago in 2009 when I attended a conference in Las Vegas, the CTIA conference, that was designed for telecommunications and wireless. And we had a number of keynote speakers at that conference then. There were about 1,500 people from all over the world in the room. And just before the last keynote, which was Al Gore talking about the planet, getting warmer and warmer and all that, just before him, we had a doctor on the stage, just like I am today, talking about how wireless technologies and telecommunications will actually change the way health and healthcare will be delivered. In other words, he was talking about the revolution in medicine. And so he mentioned, for the first time I heard this term, of the super convergence. And what he meant by super convergence was the fact that, for the first time in the history of healthcare and medicine, wireless technologies like Skype, for example, for telemedicine purposes, or wireless sensors in all sorts of dimensions, whether from a smartwatch that you can have on your wrist, to clothing, to shoes, to everything around you, to genomics, that is all about personalized medicine, to video games, to social media, to big data, to cloud computing. All these technologies will start convergence and creating new products and new services. But in the end, what he was talking about was about how the whole medicine is shifting the power from healthcare providers, such as doctors, physicians, nurses, people who work in healthcare systems, to actually move the whole power to you guys, to all of us, to people. And so he was talking about this democratization of health and healthcare. So that's kind of what I will be talking about today a little bit, and then we'll talk about some of the competitions that exist in the world that Interface Health has created. So what is Interface Health? As I said, Interface Health is a multi-platform that includes an interface challenge. It's a global challenge that we started this year on May 1st. That challenge actually is designed to discover the best digital health innovators in the world. It was a 4-month competition. It's designed to work very much like the Olympics, where you have 10 categories, as in sports, and in those 10 categories, we try to find the best innovators in the world. The way we reached out those 10 categories is by talking with a lot of research organizations around the world, talking with industry partners such as telecommunications or big hospitals or big commercial partners. And we identified 10 categories, anywhere from telemedicine and virtual therapies to consumer engagement, to digital drugs and digital services in pharma, to consumer engagement, and to many others. So that's kind of the challenge part, because we want to find, again, who are these innovators. We started, as I said, that competition mid this year. We had 150 entries from 20 countries, from 5 continents. We had 3 entries from Mexico. I see here one of the entrants in the room. Thanks for coming tonight, this afternoon. And so what we want to see is more Mexican startups and more entrepreneurs coming into the competition so that we can actually assess them. And so that's, the competition actually has the challenge is basically $100,000 as a prize, where half is cash, half is money. But the prize, the real prize, is really the opportunity to find the right partners, the right customers, the right investors who, once you are in the top 10, chances are that you'll start signing up some tremendous deals for your own startups. So that's kind of one aspect of what Interface Health is. And then the second pillar of Interface Health is a community. So think of a network, a professional network that connects researchers And when we talk research, we're not talking just researchers in health, but we're talking researchers in design, we're talking researchers in business models, we're talking about researchers in financing, we're talking about researchers in social media and social impact. So we're connecting, all the researchers with innovators and entrepreneurs. We are adding to that commercial partners and professional services, and eventually, once we reach a critical mass, we will add in consumers and patients. That particular network, it's free. You can, join it anytime you like. It's designed almost like a LinkedIn platform, but it's designed to actually help you find innovation and help you actually promote yourself and showcase what you guys do. So for those of you who are entrepreneurs in this space, I definitely encourage you to go to interfacehealth.com and sign up anytime you like. The third piece of what Interface Health is, it's an annual summit where, very much like this event, we invite people from all over the world in health, technology, design, social media, investment, and business, people from the industry side, the government side, the research side, for 2 days in Vancouver. And that event has been running for 4 years. We just had the event on September 29 and 30th, just a couple of days ago, and it was a huge success. And that's where we also invited the top 10 companies in the world to compete for the prize. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. A few people, when I presented this in Mexico already, we had a few meetings today and yesterday, and they asked me who's supporting this. Well, there's a few big supporters in Canada. Obviously, that's where we're from. TELUS and TELUS Health. TELUS is the largest health IT company in Canada. TELUS Health is a subsidiary that focuses 100% on health. They spend probably more than $1.5 billion in focusing in health and changing the way we deliver healthcare in Canada from a telco perspective. We also are looking at new ways for consumers to get engaged. So in the future, you will see telcos delivering health services, and that's something that TELUS does. Genome BC is an agency in our province, in British Columbia, that is in charge of massive projects that have to do with personalized medicine. We're looking at prevention, precision, and personalized medicine. It's a $660 million agency. Providence Healthcare Research is a big institute in our province. They have about 170 researchers, and the whole healthcare authority is about a $3 billion healthcare authority. And then we have a few others. Lumira Capital is the largest life sciences and digital health venture capital in Canada. They have offices in Toronto and Boston, San Francisco, and Montreal. And then the last one there is NRC IRAP, which is the National Research of Canada, the Industry Research Assistance Program. It's definitely an organization that you should know about if you're planning to do any business and set up shop in Canada for development purposes, for sales purposes, and so on and so forth. And then we have a few others, industries, universities, government, foundations, NGOs. Overall, we have signed up in less than 6 months. We have signed up those 20 accelerators. In the world, so you have a sense of what's going on, there's about 120, 125 accelerators that are focusing 100% on digital health. There's about 95 of them in the United States. In Canada, there's only 3 that I'm aware of, one in British Columbia in Vancouver, another one in Edmonton, in Alberta, and another one in Mars in Toronto. I encourage you to know all 3 of them if you have any plans to do business in Canada. We have, as I said, we have relationships with accelerators in North America, in Europe, in Netherlands, in UK, in Italy, in Poland, in Romania, and then on the Asia-Pacific side, we have relationships with India, China, Japan, and South Korea. So just in the last 4 months, we managed to increase our growth to about 2,400 members from 0. And the plan is to have about 10,000 members in the next couple of months and 600 companies and organizations. So that enough about interface health as a concept and what we do. What is digital health? So I think, a lot of people, if you go to hospitals, or if you go to your family doctor, or if you go to a pharmacist, a lot of people don't understand what that is. In my opinion, what digital health is all about, the digitization of medicine in whatever format that comes. And it comes in many formats. You see Google Glasses, you see organizations trying to understand our brain. You have organizations who are trying to understand, to create prosthetics and use 3D printing. So there's a lot of different applications in digital health. But in the end, the form factor doesn't matter so much. What it matters is for all of us to understand how we can capture data about ourselves so that we can actually create, a better health, so that we can help people live longer, live healthier, eventually even live happier. So these are some of the examples that you see. Some of you in the room may work on some of these kind of applications. It is a phenomenal industry, very, very exciting. All this whole digital revolution has only started a couple of years ago. It's still brand new for many countries, and I suppose based on what I know about Mexico, it's still a very, very young and green industry in your country as well. So a legitimate question is like, why should I bother? Why should I go into digital health? I'm an entrepreneur. I like entertainment, I like social media, I like e-commerce. There's so many other industries that I can use my knowledge and my skill to go and make money. It seems to me like, healthcare is such a, crazy industry. It's busy, it's hard to get in, it's regulated. So why health? Why digital health? Well, I think one of the key drivers about digital health is the fact that, most of you, if not all of you, have a smartphone. And, there's about more than 2.2 billion people on the planet who have smartphones today, out of 7 billion people that live on this planet. There's more people who actually have access to mobile phones than people who have access to fresh water. So there's a lot of people who have those devices in their pocket, and they're using it on a daily basis every day. So the empowerment of consumers, the fact that consumers can do a lot of things. You do a lot of things on your smartphone, with Facebook, with Twitter, with many other networks. You can do your travel, you can do your banking from anywhere in the world. You can do pretty much everything you like, except taking care of your own health. Try to get in touch with your family doctor or your hospital and ask them to send you information about your own health. Try to get in touch with the last lab where you had your blood test done and ask them to send it to your smartphone and tell them to also tell you what those numbers mean. I mean, those things don't happen. And why is that? It's because the healthcare industry is extremely fragmented. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Besides healthcare, education, those are the two large industries in the world that haven't changed in a long, long time, 150, 200 years. So to me, it's all about having all these consumers being empowered. They are empowered already, and they can start doing a lot of stuff. We have seen a lot of consumers using Fitbits, using apps to kind of start taking care of their own health. So that, to me, is the number one reason why you should be in this space, is because you have 2.2 billion people who are your market, and they're waiting for better products and services in this space. And just so you know, that also means that there's a lot of money to be made. So I can tell you some numbers about the United States and Canada, and I will ask anyone in the room to tell me what the numbers are in Mexico. Healthcare in the world is by far the largest vertical in the world. It is estimated at about 10 to 12 trillion dollars. The United States healthcare industry is the largest healthcare industry in the world at $3.5 trillion. The Americans are spending about $8,800 per capita in healthcare. In Canada, we spend about $2,400 to $2,300 per capita. We spend $220 billion a year in healthcare in Canada. And in my province, in British Columbia, we spend about $17.2 billion. Now, why is that important for entrepreneurs? Well, why it's important is because we cannot keep going like this. Like the healthcare budgets have gone, crazy high year after year, year after year. In the last 10 years alone, they have skyrocketed. There's a few reasons why that happened. One is the aging population. Two is the price of drugs. And three is all the wrong policies that exist in the market. And some might argue that in the United States, obviously it's a for-profit industry, there's a lot of greed there. There's a lot of crazy pricing going on. So I would say that that's one of the reasons why you should be in digital health. I have brought here a couple of graphs and they are from one of the digital health accelerators, Rock Health. Some of you may know about it. They're based in San Francisco. They also have an office in Boston. Very reputable digital health accelerator. I would say it's probably the best in the United States in terms of what they managed to produce in the last 5 years. And as you can see on this graph on the right corner, the investment in startups in digital health in the United States has been about $7.2, $7.3 billion. So that generated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of startups. You may say, how is that possible? What happened there? Well, what happened there is Obama has changed the rules in the market, and the Obama Act, which you've probably heard of, has created the right opportunities for the venture capital, and so the VCs have seen a tremendous opportunity to start pumping money into this mega industry. And so in 2009, for example, there was only one wireless health accelerator in San Diego called West Wireless Health Institute, and that was the first start in the United States. And they were focusing actually in connecting genomics with wireless sensors because of Scripps Translation Institute, and Qualcomm, which you probably heard of, is a massive global technology company. And they were the start. From 2009 to today, we have 95 accelerators in the United States. And you may ask, why is that? Well, why is that is because the big industry, healthcare is a massive industry. The pharma, the hospitals, the governments, the ministries of health, all these guys, they don't quite know how to deal with you, with the entrepreneurs, with the startups. So the accelerators will really create like a Band-Aid, like a buffer. Because Pfizer or Merck or Roche or the big companies in the world, they are not set up to really deal with guys like you, and guys like me, quite frankly. So that's kind of what happened there in the industry. So it's a massive, still lots of money in the industry, lots of money around the world in the space, in Asia, in China in particular, and India as well. The graph down there on the left corner tells you a little bit about where the money went. So there's a few areas, about 6 areas where the money went. I can share this information with you later on. You can have a sense of, where the VCs have invested money. And so we're talking about 2 different types of investments. One is venture capital, and the other one is corporate investment from corporate strategies. But the last piece of information in this quadrant down here is really has to do with the decentralization of medicine and healthcare. What happened in the last 150 years or so, in all the big cities, we have created those massive hospitals who have become huge factories to treat diseases. And so what happened with those big hospitals, they have become eventually highly inefficient and very, very costly. You go to one of those hospitals for 2-3 days, 5 days for different surgeries, for different operations and procedures. It can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $40,000 to $100,000. Very expensive organizations to run. Because of digital health technologies and wireless technologies in particular, what we are seeing right now, and this is not me saying, this is Clayton Christensen, who wrote a book called The Innovator's Prescription, is the same guy who wrote The Innovator's Dilemma and The Innovator's Solution. It's a professor at Harvard, and he spent about 10 years trying to understand the healthcare system in the United States, wrote a book about this thick, For those of you who want to study that, I recommend it. It really opens up your mind on how the US healthcare system works. Again, it's called The Innovator's Prescription if you haven't read it. But he talks about this decentralization of healthcare and about the fact that in the last 150 years, we always brought people to the solution. So you always brought people from villages, from small cities to the big cities. So you brought all these, people to the big city. In this case, Mexico City. What is happening now, we are trying to actually send solutions to the people. Send solutions to your home, to your community, to your work, in your car. So because everything is mobile and because of the Internet of Things, because of cloud computing, we are able to do that. So because of that, that's the largest opportunity in healthcare because of digital health technologies that is happening. So you can imagine that if we start disrupting the system, we're looking at trillions of dollars of savings. We're looking at trillions of dollars of new opportunities. We're looking at creating new, highly paid jobs. And quite frankly, we're looking at delivering healthcare in communities to people the way people want it. So that's the largest opportunity right there. So those are kind of the drivers, social, economic, political. This guy is Dr. Eric Topol, who actually inspired me to do what I'm doing these days. So he's a professor, he's a cardiologist, he's also one of the world's best geneticists. He understands genomics. He wrote already 2 books that I highly recommend. The one is called The Creative Destruction of Medicine. Please do read it. Another one is called The Patient Will See You Now. So what Dr. Eric Topol is talking about is exactly this shift of power from the doctors to the patients and consumers, so that they can actually be in charge of their own health. So Dr. Eric Topol, please go online and read some of his views. It's definitely something that for any entrepreneur engaged in digital health, you should know what this guy has to say. Another person that influenced my views on digital health is Ray Kurzweil. This is the grandfather of artificial intelligence. He's a futurist. He's a guy who started writing software when he was 12 years old. He's a special advisor for Google and Google Health and Life Sciences in particular. It's a guy who has seen the future, who understands the future very well, and he's predicting, for example, that in the next 10 years, humans will reach actually a life expectancy of 115. So think about that for a moment. 115 years old. I'm not sure about Mexico, but I'll tell you that in Canada, 150 years ago, our life expectancy was 24 years. And after that, it was 42. And then in the last 150 years, we actually managed to double that. So right now, the life expectancy in Canada for a man is about 84, for a woman is about 86. So you can see that for thousands and thousands of years, we only lived, to be 20, 25. And then we jumped to 40, 42. And now we're at 80, 86. And this guy might be right. Actually, I think he will be right. So in the next 10 years, because of medicine, because everything we have discovered and all that, we'll reach 115. So there's a lot of implications about that. You can imagine how hard it will be for you to retire at 65 and live another 50 years. What are you going to do for 50 years? And who's going to pay for that? Huge implications, political implications, moral implications. But also, from an entrepreneurial perspective, huge opportunities to deliver services and products to all these people who will live that much longer. So think about that. And that will happen faster than you think. Ray Kurzweil, Kurtzweil, right? Ray Kurzweil. Or just go in Google and say grandfather of AI. Yeah, artificial intelligence. All right, so things will go exponentially. And things that the healthcare industry doesn't quite understand is how fast those technologies are happening. Again, huge opportunity for anybody who is a developer in this room, for people who understand how things are moving. And of course, we're talking about all sorts of new devices, including the Apple Watch. You know, about 18 to 15 million watches were shipped in the last a couple of months. It's something that will change the way people behave and deal with their own health. Not going to spend too much time there. So I'll go back into what we are looking for at Interface Health. We're looking for innovators and entrepreneurs. And so we're looking at this universe of how we can connect discovery networks, researchers with innovation networks, with commercialization networks, patients and consumers. So that's basically, you know, where a lot of opportunities are. And the reason we're trying to do this is because a lot of these industries are not interconnected. I'm sure it's the case in Mexico, it's the same case in Canada, in the United States, in China, in India, everywhere in the world. And so that's basically what we're trying to do, is to connect the dots, create value, and extract value out of the network. So we're trying to build a network of networks for health. That's really the idea. So a visualization of that is, you know, here I am using an example of a company which was a startup about 5 years ago in Montreal, Canada. It's called Hexoskin. This is a company that has created one of the best clothing, you know, smart clothing. It's basically T-shirts and very others pieces of clothing for athletes, high-performance athletes, even astronauts. They're dealing with NASA, they're dealing with Nike, they're dealing with Lululemon out of Vancouver, with Porsche. And so the challenge that these guys had for us at Interface Health was like, how can you help us, a startup, to understand who's doing wearables, who's doing smart clothing in the world? And where are the big clients that we're looking for? And how can you help us close those deals? So what you see here, it's a project that we're working on right now. It will be probably released in the next 6 to 12 months. It's a digital map of innovation in the world. So for example, if someone wants to find out who in Mexico City is in wearables, they should be able to go there and find that very quickly. And then from wearables, there's so many other different subcategories. Again, we should be able to show that visually in a very quick way. And then eventually we'll show the opportunities that exist for you guys. This is particularly designed for startups and small to medium-sized companies. This information is also good for the government, for example, because you have the Department of Foreign Affairs, you have, you know, agencies who are in charge of entrepreneurship and technology. So they themselves want to know what's happening in the ecosystem here in Mexico City. And right now they're having a hard time doing that. And I know this because I have dealt with companies and organizations anywhere from Canada to China to Europe to even Mexico. We had some very good conversations. So this is something that would be very valuable. I was told that I have about 3 to 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to accelerate a little bit. So when we talk about finding the best innovators in the world in digital health, we are serious about this. This image is that guy on the left. His name is Charles Michael Eam. Like you, he's a startup entrepreneur. He's from San Francisco. He's the CEO of a company called Breathometer. He's the only guy, I mean, his claim to fame is because he's the only guy in the history of the Shark Tank, you know, the show, the American show, had raised $1 million from all 5 sharks, including Mark Cuban. His application was a simple device on your iPhone so that you can measure your breath when you go and have a drink at a pub, and then you basically breathe in your iPhone, and the iPhone will tell you whether you drank too much and maybe you should take Uber. Okay? So that's kind of how he started. However, he moved from that application, and here you see him and I last September at Interface Summit 2014. He won the best story. He's not only a good entrepreneur, but he's a good storyteller. So here, a few months later, Richard Branson, the guy in the middle, in case you don't know who he is, he created a huge global challenge called Extreme Tech Challenge. About 10,000 entries from all over the world. They try to discover the best innovators in the world in any technology. And you know what? And by the way, the prize was that the top 3 will go to Richard Branson's private island, and we'll spend a week there with Richard Branson and his advisors to discuss business. Well, you know what? Charles Michael Eam went there. He was in the top 3, and he won the competition out of 10,000 entries from 200 countries. So this is the kind of guy we're looking for. So that's kind of, and we are kind of finding, as I said, we have had the Interface Challenge this year, 150 entries, 20 countries, 5 continents in 10 categories. And this is the guy who won, the guy in the middle, is the guy who won the competition this year. So he's our first champion. His name is Ashifi Gogo. He's the CEO of a company called Sproxil. If you read Fast Company magazine, he made the list on a Fast Company magazine in 2013 as the most innovative digital health company in the world. The number 1 company in the world was Nike. These guys, Sproxil, were number 7 in the world, of all companies in the world. And so he came, he entered our challenge, and he won. Now what Sproxil does is a very simple solution to a very big problem. Basically, they're in the counterfeit business, the counterfeit drugs business. In Africa alone, about 700,000 people die every year because they buy the wrong drugs. They're counterfeit drugs, they're cheaper, and they don't know the difference. So these guys came up with an SMS application where you go to a pharmacy, you look at the drug, you scratch that, you look at the code, and then you send that code via SMS to a database, and then the database sends you back an answer whether that drug is real or not. Just by doing that, they started saving tens of thousands of lives across Africa. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the kind of companies we're looking for is companies who have a kick-ass team, companies who have a big, real solution to a big, real problem, companies who understand how to make money with that solution. But in the end, we're looking for companies who can have a global impact so that, health is universal. So we're interested in any of you who have solutions that can go global, not just for Mexico City, not just for Mexico, but for Latin America, for around the world. So those are the kind of companies we're looking for. And I would say, I'll close with a call. I'd like to invite all of you who are in this space to join our community. It's basically free, so there's no risk for you, quite frankly. You'll discover a lot of interesting partners there. And we have a number of widgets on the website where we're trying to understand your needs so that we can start connecting you with the right partners all over the world. So please do join that. As I said, it's free. You can do that anytime you like. And with that, I'd like to close. Thank you, muchas gracias, and thank you. I'd like to tell you about a couple of things. There were actually 2 flags there that disappeared. One was, of course, the Mexican flag. The other one was the Canadian flag. You can imagine that. I don't know where they disappeared, but they did. I mentioned the free membership at interfacehealth.com and obviously on Twitter at interfacehealth. I'd like to tell you about the next global challenge that we will start will be in Las Vegas at HIMSS. HIMSS is the largest health IT show in the United States. About 40 to 50,000 people show up there. It's massive. I definitely encourage you to go there and meet other exhibitors, hear lectures. Definitely stay there for 4 or 5 days. It's worth the time and the money. So that's in Las Vegas, and we're launching. That's where we're launching the next global challenge. And I hope to see as many, startups from Mexico entering that. Our next summit in Vancouver in September 27, 28, 2016. Please, keep that in mind. And I'm very pleased to tell you that we're actually working with a number of organizations here locally and with our very strategic partner, Tech BA Vancouver, to actually bring Interface Summit to Mexico City in the fall of 2017. With that being said, again, muchas gracias, thank you, and I'm open for questions.
Hello. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how difficult do you think it's the wearable?
I think she's speaking English, right? So I don't think I need...
Um,
it's English, right?
Sorry?
You're asking in English, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
asking
there
English.
you go.
How difficult is the wearable market? Because, well, I'm developing a wearable right now. It's a medical gadget, and there's been a lot of people that has told me that wearables are really difficult to work with. So, what can you tell me about that?
Okay, so the question is how big the wearable market is, or how big the whole market is?
More like how difficult it is to enter.
Oh, how difficult it is to enter.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, so you have two markets, depending on the wearable that you're working on. One is the consumer health market, which is not regulated, which is relatively easy to enter, because you have no regulation. You don't have a hospital or a healthcare authority or Ministry of Health or FDA to start approving what you need to do. So in that market, you're relatively safe, and the barrier is pretty low. You can enter. Yeah, you can come up with your device, your wearable, and then you go direct to consumer or through channel partners. So that one, I think, if you have a good product, it should be relatively easy to get in the market. The other one, the healthcare market, it's highly regulated. It's very, very difficult to enter. And in that market, you'll enter only through a lot of pilot projects, all the right strategic partners. It takes a long time to do it, and at least in our experience. So that one is difficult. But it's not impossible, yeah? And so, but I think people who are in the wearables market, they start thinking probably too narrow about their wearable. I think you need to understand your solution in a workflow or in the patient's experience, and understand how your technology works with other technologies that are involved in that patient experience if your wearable is for a patient. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay, did I answer the question? Yeah. Sí? Yes? No? Sí? Okay, good. Okay, good. Gracias. Okay, next question. Again, in English or in Spanish?
In English.
In English, folks. Wow.
So I actually have two questions, but I'm going to go with one I think it's my top priority.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with the story about 23andMe, the genomics business that tried to attend to the public industry,
yeah.
The FDA kind of made some regulatory permits that obliged 23andMe to reduce its value to the consumer. So what I'm actually asking is, how about the business-to-business opportunities of bioinformatics? Is it possible for a startup to give this kind of services, and is Interface Health a possible platform to enter this market opportunity?
Okay. So if I understand the question correct, you're looking at the 23andMe as a direct-to-consumer business, right?
Right.
And they've been relatively successful in the first part, and then they had a hiccup with FDA. They said stop, and now they're back in the market, right?
Right.
And so your question is, that was a B2C model, and is there an opportunity in the B2B?
Exactly, especially for startups.
Yeah. Well, you know that actually 23andMe, the way they make money, like really lots of money, it's in the B2B. It's not in the B2C. The fact that you're paying $99 or $100 or even $349, depending on the country you're in. In Canada, we pay, I think, $2.99 for 23andMe. In the United States, they pay $1.99. And that's the consumer pay. The way 23andMe and other organizations like 23andMe, smart patients like me, the way they make their money is actually in B2B. It's all the analytics and all the data in aggregate level, and that's how they make the money. They don't make a lot of money on the B2C side. Yeah, that's designed to make some money, but it's not really where they make their money. They make their money on the back end in the B2B. Yeah? So in that sense, I think if you're asking, I'm a startup, I have great data visualization or data analytics skills, and we can help companies like 23andMe, or we can help organizations who are dealing with genomics, with big data that they don't understand how to process and how to visualize it, then I think There's huge opportunity in that area because it is so new. Like talking about genomic data, for example, in Canada, we have very few geneticists who actually understand the whole data of the whole human genome. And quite frankly, 23andMe, they only give you data for about 250,000 markers, not the whole genome, right? And so there's a lot of opportunities in all these areas in big data and data visualization. So I hope I answered the question.
Sure.
Okay. So you had the second question, or it was?
If nobody has any objections, well, it's actually
I
a
don't
quick
object.
question. Okay, is Mexico a fertile ground for public registry, like public health registry systems?
Well, that's a question that actually I don't have an answer for, yeah, because I don't know exactly what's going on in your country in that aspect, and so I wouldn't be qualified to answer that question. I can look into it and I can maybe follow up and I say, well, here's my opinion, what I think. But right now, I don't have an answer because I don't know.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question over there. This lady over there. Maybe you can tell us your name and who do you represent so people in the room know where you're from.
Oh, okay, okay. My name is Mayu. I'm from Mexico City. I represent myself.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, and I am wondering if interface health consider the world of alternative health solutions and how. I mean, if it's so. If
Okay,
it is
so the question is if we are considering rural solutions? If
No, I am in the alternative healthcare.
Oh,
world.
alternative healthcare. Okay.
So, and I'm trying to jump into digital
Yeah.
for service to deliver health to people.
Yes.
Right? To make it handy.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if I join this network, I will
Yeah.
find something related to the alternative health world or not, or
Okay, so
have you
yeah, so
considered
the answer is you should be able to find. Right now, what we're creating here, it's a marketplace where we're bringing the buyers and sellers together. I don't know by heart, but there's a search. You can search once you get in. You can search for alternative medicine and see what kind of companies are in that space. And then you can actually contact them directly. I'm not sure what exactly you're trying to build or do. It looks to me like you're trying to deliver a service. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
to deliver homeopathic and other alternative
Yeah.
medicine to
Yeah.
to the
But
health.
don't, okay, so let's clarify. So our platform is no different in many ways than LinkedIn. Like the platform itself is not going to help you. You need to kind of be proactive and reach out to the companies and organizations that you need to do business with. The platform itself is not going to help you. It's almost like if you have a CRM platform like Salesforce, yeah, the platform itself doesn't help you if you don't actually use it as a platform. So to me is go there, tell others you're there, and create almost your own contacts so that you can actually get going to what you're trying to do. I hope
Okay.
I answered
Yeah,
the question.
thank you.
Okay. There's a question here from a Canadian. No? It's
My name is Luis Lojero. I'm Mexican.
okay.
I represent an IT company, a Mexican IT company, and we have a product on IT health. It's actually a hospital record solution,
Okay.
or health record, EHR. My question is, do you see a market? We've been seeing a very interesting market in Mexico because American, Canadian, European companies come with their solutions and they're very expensive. So we think we can provide better solutions in a cheaper way. Do you agree with this? That would be the first question. And specifically, are you seeing developing world to developing world trends in terms of IT health? Thank you.
Okay. So a number of questions there. So first of all, electronic health records, there's a bit of a myth about what electronic health records can do. In Canada, for example, we spent the last 6, maybe 8 years, we also we had an organization called Canada Health Infoway that had $2.1 billion to introduce electronic health records with family doctors, with hospitals, and so on and so forth. The reality was that we had 12 provinces, each one of them doing different electronic health records, and then within that space, we also had multiple hospitals adopting different electronic health records. So, and they all don't talk to each other. And this is a universal problem in many countries. The very few countries who succeeded in that game, in promoting and adopting electronic health records, not only on the health side, healthcare, by the doctors and physicians and nurses and all that, but also by patients, are UK, United Kingdom, Denmark, and probably 3 or 4 other countries in the world. It's a very tough, difficult game to play. I also think that fundamentally, at least the electronic health records, the way we know as a technology, is sort of old technology. You know, Cerner and Epic and other big organizations are using very old frameworks to implement. Very expensive, millions of, tens of millions of dollars to adopt their solutions. And so I think the market has shown, you know, with Oscar and a few other open source electronic health records, that they can deliver as good a solution for almost no money. It's open source, it's free. And so those solutions exist. If you have a solution like that, your challenge is really to convince some hospitals or some healthcare authorities that, you know, they should adopt your solution. The problem with that, of course, is most of the big organizations in any country, yeah, who are in healthcare, they would rather go with Cerner or Epic, and they would pay 10 times or 100 times more because they're covered, as in insurance. So it's very hard for any startup to convince a company. The fact that your solution is maybe 90% less in terms of money, it's not really a selling point. That's not, it really, in the end, it doesn't matter. What it matters is how your solution actually can make comfortable that organization, that what they're adopting is there for the long term, and it can work with other, you know, the systems that they have in their whole big system. And to me, that's one of the advice that I give any startup. When I see that you're trying to develop something super complicated, I say, well, stop, because the competition there is very hard to move these guys away. I don't know if I answer your questions. Well, it's a long answer, but I hope I did a little bit of justice.
Yep.
Okay, welcome. So how much time we have? We have another 5 minutes or so? Or
yeah, well, 5 minutes.
5? Okay, so if we have any other questions, we still can answer. If not, then not. Well, here's one question. There you go. That's the $1 million question.
Hi. Well,
What is your name? Where are you from?
my name's Alice. I'm from
Alex.
England originally. I've been living in Mexico for the last 14 years.
Okay.
I'm currently developing a startup based in the health space. My question was, how easy or difficult, I imagine more is the way, is I'm working in something it's more healthcare delivery or sort of health services, the commerce side of health. How easy or difficult is it to move over to make it global, but over to the United States? Because I see the United States as this kind of massive silo, where like it's a very different healthcare system to the rest of the world. It's very closed. I don't know how if you've worked with any startups that have
in the United States,
or who've been in the healthcare space that have been out of the United States and moved in,
yeah,
effectively in that kind of space.
Okay. So that's up to you, I guess, as an entrepreneur, what markets you choose to go into. Some entrepreneurs go to the United States. I have to say, in Canada, about 8 out of 10 startups or small to medium-sized companies who are in the health and health IT and digital health are going to the United States. The reason for that is, A, it's a massive market. B, it's a for-profit market. So therefore, if you go there and talk to a hospital, an insurance company, whoever, a foundation of some kind, if you go there and actually, the solution that your colleague was talking about, those are the companies who actually will be looking at, you have a solution that is 90% less money, and it can still help us deliver the same outcomes or better, let's talk. So that's actually, that kind of opportunity doesn't exist probably anywhere else in the world but the United States, because it's a for-profit market. So in that regard, I think if you have a very clear, value proposition, the United States is right here. You can fly in, you can, meet some of these accelerators that they are all over the place right now in the United States. You can maybe go through one of their cohorts. You can make all the contacts and all that. So I would say use all that infrastructure that exists right now in the United States. As I said, there's about 90 to 95 accelerators. Sign up for one of their programs, go there, make the connections, and eventually try to make an impact and start selling your solution. I would say that's what I would do. The other advice that I would give to an entrepreneur is like, don't go to the United States because everybody's going there. So find a market, I know, like Vietnam, or Brazil, or Venezuela, or whatever. Find another market in the world where, your solution is needed. Yeah. To me, that's the most important thing. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs start with solutions with non-existing problems. Yeah. So make sure that you do have a solution that the market actually needs. And if the market needs, you'll find that market somewhere in the world. But frankly, try at home first. This is where you know the people, you know the ecosystem. I would start here and then try to do in other places. Or use our global competition for that matter. Yeah, because if you make it into the top 10, chances are you're gonna, somebody will sign a deal with you. Okay? Good, thanks. Okay, if we have there's one, okay, maybe last question.
Do you have any recommendations on health franchises? Low budget, like thinking on 50,000 US?
Okay, actually I don't. That's the short answer. No, I don't, and the reason for that is because we're not really in that business, yeah? So we are in the business of disrupting innovation. The kind of models that maybe you are talking about are franchises from, I don't know, pharma chains or other types of products in healthcare, but that's not something that we ourselves are involved in. So I actually don't have an answer for you in that space, okay? All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, again, muchas gracias. Thank you very much for your patience, and good luck with your startups. Okay.